We are in a series called Achieving Mastery. And in case you haven't yet, I can continue to talk, because one of the things I notice is that achieving mastery is there's always this next level to our spiritual growth and awareness. And we reach one level of understanding and development, and then we see there's new vistas. For me, one of the real signs of spiritual growth is when we recognize how little we know. You know, I still long for the days when I knew everything. It was a nice feeling. So we're looking at this idea. For those of you who were here last week with Dr. Kathy, she was quite amazing, yes? And she has been a dear friend and mentor for me for many, many years. And so I really loved and appreciated when she stood up and said, I was given this topic, but I'm not going to talk about it. So, see, I came by this honestly. As I've always said, I never let a title get in the way of what I want to say. But today's title is good, so I may even speak to it. Today's title is This Paradigm Must Go. Yes. So who knows what I mean when I talk about paradigm? Anyone? Shout out to me. A belief system, a belief structure, a way of perceiving reality, right? A mental model. And so we use this terminology a lot in our way of communicating now. Holmes spoke of it in different ways. He spoke about mental equivalence and that sort of thing. But when we begin to realize that we each have a paradigm, a way we perceive reality, a way we understand what is, and we live our life accordingly. In scientific terms, which is where this word was used quite a bit, is in a scientific paradigm, in the most basic sense of the word, it's a framework containing all of the commonly accepted views about a subject. A structure of what direction research should take and how it should be performed. So when you have a paradigm in a scientific model, you do your research around that, and you experiment and you play with it, and then you either prove it to be true or you prove it not to be true. So probably the best example of this is in physics. For many years, Newton's laws were the thing. Newton's laws were an example of a paradigm, and scientists worked out his principles for centuries. Remember the fabled story of sitting under the tree and the apple falls out of the tree, and he said, why is this? There must be something that causes this. And that began a discovery and a process and research into what is the nature of this universe and how is it formed and what does it mean. The discovery of the internal structure of the atom started to find holes in the theory. And Einstein provided the out-of-the-box thinking that dragged the paradigm into another direction. In other words, at one point, in Einstein's thinking and in that whole model of thinking, they were looking to say, if we can figure out what's the smallest building block of the universe, then we can understand how the universe is formed. And they got deeper and deeper into this. And they... Many people thought sort of that like this universe in which we live is like a big machine, and if we can just figure out the parts of it, we'll understand the nature of it. But then you get this crazy-haired person who's thinking outside of the box and saying, what if? What if what I believe to be true is not true? What if there's another reality that is transcendent to that? And so he began to introduce some new concepts building upon the old. And so now we have a thing that's beyond traditional physics, which is called quantum physics. And so there's a great study into the nature of reality. And as Fritjof Capra once said, he said, we begin to look at the universe not so much as a great machine, but as a great thought. That there is a consciousness, an intelligence, a wisdom, we say one mind, something at work. And that what we've begun to find out is that if you change something at one dimension, it will change in another. How is that so? How is that possible? They also began to study light. What is the nature of light? And what they discovered in the study of light is one set of experiments would make light particles. If you search for light particles, guess what you find? Thank you. Hello. Geez, do I have to do everything? But if you search, then they also did some research and realized, but wait a minute, it also looks like a wave. And depending on the experiment and the expectation of those researching, they found either light particles or light waves. So which is right? Both. Absolutely. It's fascinating. We used to think of time as a linear process. But Einstein said, oh, wait a minute. Because if you can actually travel faster than the speed of light, then time enters into a different dimension. Now, that's just crazy, isn't it? But it's true. So you have a paradigm, and you live your life accordingly until you question the paradigm, until you're willing to think outside of the paradigm. So it turns out we all have a paradigm, a way we mentally model our universe. And we have this, in Science of Mind, we teach some different aspects of mind. We talk about the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is lovely. Conscious mind allows us to make choices. It's the realm of will and volition and choice and direction. And so we say, I choose to be, and we become it. Or we say, I choose to go to the Center for Spiritual Living on a Sunday morning, and lo and behold, the clouds parted, and miracles happened, and you are here. Right? Way to go. You are good. Right? The conscious mind makes decisions. But then there's this other dimension of who we are, and it is called the subconscious mind. You got to love the subconscious mind. It really serves us so graciously because what it does is it takes information. And so you got here on the planet as this little bundle of joy, as we like to say, and you began to observe what the big people were doing. And you began to grow and develop into your body, and you began to learn to talk. And you did that because you watched the big people talking. And you noticed that if they made certain sounds, it meant something, and so you tried to emulate those sounds. And most of us today can speak, right? We looked around and we said, look at the big people, they can walk. Maybe I'll try that. And so we learned by watching, and so we learned by observing the world around us and beginning to incorporate it into our own experience. And we looked at all kinds of things. We noticed some things about what happens when the conversation of money comes up in the household. Is it a joy-filled experience? Or is there angst and gnashing of teeth? And we formed opinions about money. Now we know that money is a fairly neutral object. It's just paper, essentially. Not even paper anymore, it's just digits somewhere. Doing digital stuff. I mean, right? You know, it doesn't even exist anymore. But boy, we put some attachment to it, don't we? When those digits go the wrong way in your bank account, you're like, ah. So we formed this paradigm about reality. And we live according to that reality. Right? None of us wake up in the morning and go, I made up a story about how my life is, so I'll just live it differently today. We go, nope, that's the way it is. By golly, you got to work hard to succeed, to get ahead. Who said? Who said? Right? Money doesn't grow on trees. Who says? Right? I mean, we carry around all these things and we act as if that is so. So I happen to be a fan of, when I have downtime, one of my favorite channels is HGTV. Any others? Okay. So, and on HGTV, they have all kinds of cool shows, buying property and selling property and renovation. Lots of renovation shows. And I always love those because there's this wonderful thing that happens. They say, here's this trashed out house, but we can get it at a good deal. We can spend X number of dollars, fix it up. It'll be the home of your dreams. And then you go through the process, and at the end of it, it looks like the home of your dreams. Of course, after you find out you have termites and the pipes are no good and whatever. But inevitably in this process of the remodeling, one of the people comes to the developers and says, we've been thinking we'd really like to have a master bathroom. And they go, well, let us go to our blueprint. If we add this, we're talking about $15,000. Can you come up with $15,000? Can we cut it? Because it's not in our blueprint. Now, can you redo the blueprint? Sure. But it gets you get a different result. So I got to thinking about this, and I thought, our subconscious mind is sort of the blueprint of our life. And so we've laid out what is possible for me. What does my life look like? Now, it's all subconscious. It's not here. It's subconscious. And you just have expectation of what your life's going to be like. How much good you can enjoy, how much love is available, how much money you can have, all of these sorts of things. And then what happens is new information comes into your experience, and your subconscious mind runs over to the blueprint and says, wow, we don't have a room for that. It must go. So sometimes you see people, maybe you are that person, I know I have been that person, who consciously chose a new experience of life and manifest it. And lost it. Anybody know these people? Besides me, you can just stare at me. It's okay. I'm good. Right? And you go, well, what the heck? Marty, you said if I just changed my thinking, I'd change my life. And I say unto you, my friends, understand what's going on. Until we change the mental model, until we change the paradigm, until we change and give blueprints. So we need to add on. We need an addition to that blueprint that says, here is the storehouse for all my greater good to have a place to reside. Because if I haven't done that inner consciousness work, good comes in my life, but it has no place to live. So it must go away. Now, sometimes we call that... we call it self-sabotage or all those sorts of things. Now, if you ever had this experience, I'd like to take a moment for us to judge ourselves. Do it well, do it harshly, get it out of the system. Okay, you good? Feeling bad about yourself? Excellent, let it go. Because this is not about helping us feel good or bad. It's just simply recognizing the nature of reality. That until the blueprint is created, the outer experience doesn't happen. But you see, this is not the message that the world gives us. The world says, if you create more stuff, you'll feel better. If you have more stuff, you'll feel better. And if you have our stuff, even better. And we would be happy to sell that to you. Right? And we're bombarded with that message all the time. So I was reminded of a story, because you know me and my Bible. I love my Bible. And in the story, Jesus gives another example of life. Now, some people think that if Jesus lived today, he would have a little blog called Jesus' Helpful Hints, Helpful Household Hints. Here's how you sow, here's how you reap, here's how you make water into wine, here's how you do all these things. So here's one of the stories. He says in Mark 2:22, if you want to look it up for yourself, no one puts new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise the wine will burst the skins, and the wine is lost and the skins as well. But one puts new wine into fresh wineskins. So you could put that on your little recipe card and put that away as a helpful hint if you're ever making wine and using wineskins, which is not a common practice anymore. We're kind of into bottles these days. But let's assume for a moment that maybe, just maybe, I'm losing my voice. maybe, just maybe, there's a larger story here. This does this strange thing. And the larger story perhaps is a story of consciousness. So in the olden days, what would happen is that we would make wine. Because bottles had not yet been invented, you had to store them in something. So they discovered that when you take a goat and you chop it up and you eat the meat and do all that sort of thing, you have this perfectly good stomach. Am I being too graphic? But you need to know this. This is important. And so, in case bottles ever go away, you want to be prepared. So, literally, they'd make wine, they'd store them in intestinal units, right? But the problem with those is they don't last forever. And so what they realized is you can't reuse those. You drink the wine, you say, hey, I'm going to use this old wineskin, so I'm putting new wine into it. Guess what happened? It burst. And so you lost the wine and the wineskin. So why is Jesus telling us this? Perhaps this is that same study of consciousness. That what we try and do is put new information into an old paradigm. And it doesn't work. I don't know, I've done it in my own life, I've seen people who've done it who come into the teaching or find this thing and they have all this stuff happen and things are really working and all of it's great. And then as if by magic, it all implodes or explodes. What happened? Marty, you said that if I just change my thinking, right? So what we realize is that the work, achieving mastery, is not how do you manifest. It's really how do you create the environment for such a thing to be welcome in our experience. You see, if we say consciously, I choose to have more money, but we have a paradigm that says money's bad, money's evil, money da-da-da-da-da-da-da, then if money comes into our life, we have a conflict. And here's the thing. If it comes down to a choice between logic and emotion, 9 times out of 10, emotion wins. So knowing that, we say, aha, I must create the new wineskin. I must create the new blueprint. I must create the new paradigm that is ready and available and ready to have this experience in my life. So then, when it comes into my experience, it's welcome. It's not freaking out my subconscious mind going, what are you doing here? We don't let good in this house. We don't let love in this house. We definitely don't do healthy relationship in this house. Not under my roof, baby. Not under my roof. Right? So we go, okay, so we're going to redefine the rules. Now, I wanted to share this with you today because I mentioned last week under Dr. Kathy's direction, we had 18 folks that came together around new possibility for the Center for Spiritual Living. The last time we did this, we came together, she led us through a process, we got clear on our consciousness, on our intention of what we wanted to create. Because here's the thing you have to know about creation. The reason most people don't have what they want is they don't know what they want. Now, often they can tell you what they don't want. You ever notice that? Some people can tell you all day long what they don't want. They can tell you how they'd like their spouse to be different, or their boss to be different, or life to be different. But they haven't gone to the work to really clearly identify and understand what it is we want. So I say that, if we say, I don't want to go north, that still leaves 359 other options. Right? There's all of those other ways we could go. But when we identify it's north, now we have one. So our minds are wonderful things, and our subconscious can create that. It can find a direction once we identify what it is we want. So we came together as community last weekend, 18 of us, all ranges of people. Some people relatively new to the community, some people that have been in the community for a long time, some people that were practitioners, some people that were new to the work. All, just kind of this cross-section of people to come together and look at who do we want to be now. And so all these papers you see on the walls are that unfolding as we work together in consciousness. Now, if you look at those, they make no sense to you. They're not meant to. I just wanted to prove to you that we actually did some work and paper got filled out and it was really good. But what happened out of that is what you see on your chair in front of you. And what you see on your chair in front of you is the new vision for who we are as spiritual community. There's depth to this work. And so on the one page with the larger print, it says the Center for Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living, quoting Dr. Holmes when he says, "Life is to be lived in joy in a fullness without limit." Do you believe that? That was kind of weak. I got to say, I'm not convinced everybody's embodied the joy of that. But we said, what if we set for a spiritual quality as an intention that we would be the embodiment of joy? Whew. I know. Feeling better already, aren't you? See? And so we set out our purpose. Let's be joy. And so we put forward a vision of a thriving community practicing authentic spiritual living. Nice, huh? Yeah. That we're not just a community that talks about living spiritually, but actually lives from that consciousness. Now, again, wherever we are, we're all in some level of achieving mastery. And so we set as intentions, we invite people to consciously engage in the life of our spiritual center. Now, I want you to know every one of these words has clarity and intention behind it. So you may not get the full impact of it, but those of us that sat in the room and almost went into a wrestling match over some of these phraseology, we get it. Now, we are very loving. But it is amazing. We did kind of have a wholeness joy smackdown. Joy won. Thank you. I was Team Joy, so I just want you to know. We did wholeness last time and it about killed me, so I was like, not doing that. We create vibrant, relevant celebration services. We reach the people who are seeking what we offer. Now, this was an insight. One of the ways we sometimes talk about ourselves is being the best kept secret. Now, knowing what you know about science of mind, is that a smart thing to say?
No.
What if we instead said we reach the people who are seeking what we offer?
Yes.
Might be something. What do we want? We positively impact our community, and we are supported and prospered in the fulfillment of these intentions. 180 hours went into that. I know, but it's powerful, isn't it? So, what I have decided, and I want to invite you into spiritual practice as a community. And we are going to launch tomorrow 40 days of prayer. We've done this before. Now, why 40 days? Because it's biblical. Anything good that happens in the Bible is 40, or not even good. 40 days. How long did it rain? Anybody? 40 days. And then new consciousness was found. New land was established. 40 days in the wilderness before a period of completion happened and newness came forward. Over and over and over. So 40 is not necessarily a literal number. It is a symbolic number of the shifting of consciousness. It is said Jesus went into the desert to pray for 40 days before he emerged into his ministry. So it's symbolic, but I'm inviting us to be in prayer together for the next 40 days. If you're willing, you don't have to. There will be no prayer police that will come to your house to see if you prayed today or not. But if you're willing to do this, because here's what I know. The consciousness of the community is the consciousness of the community. It's not my consciousness solely. I'm part of that consciousness. So because we're a full service organization, we actually, if you flip it over, oh look, there's a prayer. And this is our group covenant prayer. Now, some of the terminology is a little old school. If that bothers you, you don't have to use it. But for those who are willing, I'm wanting to invite you for once a day for the next 40 days, post this somewhere, read it through, imagine it, embody it, be the presence of this. Because you'll notice when we get to the middle part, it says, I invite people to consciously engage in the life of our spiritual community. You see, one of the things I hear often when people come to me with well-meaning ideas, thoughts, suggestions, is you should or they should. There's a very different energy when I say, I am that I'm consciously inviting people into the life of this spiritual community. If you're part of the community, if you just got here, you don't know what the heck's going on. It's all right, you'll be fine. For the rest of you, if you're here more than a day, now you're part of the community, you get to invite others into the life of this community. I create vibrant, relevant celebration services. Here's what I want you to understand. You are as important to the vibrancy of our celebration services as I am. Believe it? Yes. I want you to. I was thinking about this a number of years ago. I was invited to go give a talk up at Hill Air Force Base for a bunch of jet pilots, fighter jet pilots. Is that what they call it? Fighter jets? Okay. I was so in my element. In fact, at some point I made a reference to you get in your jet and you turn on the key, and I was like, do these have keys? I mean, I don't know. But anyways, so I brought my best game. I had my stories. I had my wonderful thing. Whew. Talk about a tough crowd. These are people that fly jets that kill people for a living. They were not. They didn't want to be there in the first place, and then they get me. Me. So I was thinking, I thought about this morning, I can bring my best stuff, but do we create the vibrancy for this to happen? Coco can bring his best stuff, but do we create the vibrancy? You see, if we want the life that we want, we have to be that. Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Live it, be it, embody it, create that mental blueprint. It says, I teach, I reach. Ooh, okay. There's this new font called Small and Fuzzy. And so, and they seem to be using it everywhere these days. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I reach the people who are seeking what we offer, it says. I positively impact our community. I know I am being fully supported and prospered in the fulfillment of these intentions. You like it? Yes. Because Holmes said to us, the work of the practitioner is done in the mind of the practitioner, and we are all practicing. So if you are willing and would like to join us in prayer for the next 40 days, I just invite you once a day. Maybe keep this on your mirror, look at the intentions, and once a day to read this, either out loud or to yourself. But to launch this, it starts tomorrow, but just as a pre-warm-up, I would like for us to read this together today. Would you be willing to do such a thing? Yes. Very good. Ready? Get your helpful... one time somebody said to Ernest Holmes, they said, so if this stuff works... why do you wear glasses? And he said, quite brilliantly, because I can't see a darn thing without them. So, there it is. If you will, there is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with this life that is God, I know that I am one with all of its beloved expressions and hold sacred this beloved revelation called the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living. Because I know that the highest purpose of this center is to express spirit, I know that we are a revelation of the divine as joy. I see this center revealed before me as a thriving community practicing authentic spiritual living. I participate in our next unfolding in full cooperation and agreement with my beloved partners. Knowing the truth about myself, I invite people to consciously engage in the life of our spiritual community. I create vibrant, relevant celebration services. I reach the people who are seeking what we offer. I positively impact our community. I know I am being fully supported and prospered in the fulfillment of these intentions. I know that the center is fully supported in this vision and by my intention, for it is written, life is to be lived in joy, in a fullness without limit. As I now accept the highest expression of this covenant into my life, I know that it is being revealed in a way that expresses the divine and serves the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by its unfoldment. I am